Exactly. So on the 11th, actually right after our talk, the very next morning, less than like 5 hours later, I jumped on a plane and headed out of town. So this first day, I think the 12th was probably the most difficult because my eating pattern was off. I don't even think I got a full 12 hours, or maybe I got more. But the 13th through the 18th, I can tell you, I stopped eating at 5:30 at night, and I had my first cup of coffee at probably 5:30 to 6 in the morning. And that was pretty routine for me.
That's awesome, because the key, when I ask people to put in, I think one of the other conversations you and I had prior to all this was you shared one of your fears, which is, I know you like this fasting thing, but I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if that's the right thing for me. I don't know if I can do that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate that the world hears the word fasting, and then your brain goes to these extremes where there's people on YouTube or they fast for 10 days and 6 days, and you're like, I don't need you to do that much fasting. And let's start with 12 hours. 12 hours. But during those 12 hours, we are going to give you the best science can offer you, which is, I need you to be really good for 12 hours. And then I pushed it a little bit further with you on the first week, knowing that you really do want the weight loss, which was to say, if you want the best results, you can't affect, I don't care if you're a night shift worker or not, you can't stop that morning cortisol from bursting and falling every day in your circadian rhythm. And I can say that with a lot of confidence, that we have shift workers who've been that nurse who's run the night shift for 25 years. And we put her in the sleep lab and we check those hormones. And at 4 o'clock in the morning or 4:30 in the morning, her body still surges the cortisol, even though she's up and doing her job as the night nurse. And that releases the sugar and starts the body's circadian rhythm for the day. Unfortunately, I mean, you can see after 25 years, it does shift a couple of hours, but it does not flip. People say, oh, you know what? I've been doing this forever. My body's used to it. I'm like, no. If you look at the science of our body, it loves to do the things it's supposed to do during the light hours. And then there's these things that happen during the night hours. One of them being this cortisol surge, which raises our sugar. And that is very programmed within your system. It's very rhythmical. So I tell you that because people often say, well, 10 o'clock at night, and I just didn't start eating until 10 in the morning. And I actually pushed you back on that, on you, saying, I would really encourage you not to do that. Some people can't start there, it's too difficult, and I'll take whatever 12 hours I can get. But if you want the best results, it's to say, figure out what time you wake up in the morning. And if you're in a plateau with a ketogenic diet, you're keto adapted, get past the fear of checking your finger and get some numbers that are glucoses and ketones. And then really try to take your morning cup of coffee, that first thing that goes into your mouth, and subtract out 12 hours before that. So I must say, as a mom with kids and a full life, kudos that you were able to put the cutoff on and say 5:30 at night is when I'm going to stop. Did you have any troubles with that?
Having a history of hypoglycemia in the past, it is ingrained that you eat every 2 hours, you eat all the time. And I don't eat a lot throughout the day. And then my normal was that I'm really, really busy. And then all of a sudden in the evening, I'm like, oh my God, I'm really hungry. And I didn't even realize I was hungry all day. There'd be days I would go all day and maybe eat my one meal in the evening. So that's clearly against what my hormones are doing. And I think that's very important to point out, because when you are fat adapted, it is really easy not to eat, and not to eat at the right times. So the 12-hour fasting, it's a psychological thing. As a family,
it's a big deal. You'll have people out there saying, but I can't, I have to have my morning cup of coffee. It's got to be at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock, whatever time they get up in the morning. I'm not good at, and my family doesn't get home until 7 o'clock at night. That's when we eat. And that's why I've said, I'll take whatever I can get. If you want the best results, it does come with, give me from your circadian rhythm minus 12. And by say circadian rhythm, I mean, what time are you waking up? and then fire backwards 12 hours to give me that 12 hours of only water and salt. But Jennifer, you did a good job, but not everybody can do that. So the other part that I think you said something is you didn't really like black coffee. You were putting a lot of cream in your coffee. And again, that's very keto. So is coconut oil. So is MCT oil. Those are all, yes, you're doing a good job. You've got keto. I mean, you're going to be in ketosis. But did you continue? I know you mentioned something the first time about taking away and just having black coffee. What did your coffee look like when you drank it in the morning this past week?
So this week, and if you told me not to have butter and cream in my coffee, then I totally didn't listen to you, or maybe I purposely didn't remember it, because I did put a little bit of butter in it. You didn't?
Yeah, no. I didn't tell you that. No, you had said something about, I even tried to take away the cream in my coffee. I wasn't sure if that was something you were still doing, or if not. No, it's totally game. Keep it off. If you give me 12 hours of only water and salt, you can have cream in your coffee.
Okay, so I did put butter and I put a little cream in the coffee.
Perfect. Okay. So for other listeners out there, I'll give you a hint though. If let's say you're that gal who has to have a supper at 7 o'clock because you're the primary, supper maker for the family, and you get up the next morning and your sugar and ketones. I mean, you have some really good numbers here. Let me just look at them again. So yeah, you have some, blood sugars in the 80s and 70s, one in the 90s, all really good. That's really good numbers. And we're checking them at the end of a 12-hour fast. So this is a very good reflection of how well she emptied out her liver. And if you haven't taken a listen to the book, it's a really big deal to say, why does somebody get stuck in a plateau? And my answer is going to be, your liver is not what you think it is. And they'll kind of, their eyes will gloss over, or they'll just kind of dial out. I'm like, no. Livers are not something where you need to go get a CAT scan or have a bunch of lab tests. I need to check your blood sugar, and I need you to do it on an empty cycle at the end of the cycle. So getting these numbers that first week and just showing me that you do a pretty good job. When you fasted, you did a good job of emptying your liver. I have lots of people that still lose weight. They still do a good job, but their morning fasting sugars after 12 hours of fasting are somewhere in the 90s, 105, 110, 112. And that's not good. To me, I would say, oh, it's really high, but it's coupled with ketones that are 2.2, 2.4. And that's a whole nother lesson we'll get to a different day. They still lose weight. We still get them through the plateau using those numbers, but it's different. You have a really good advantage that your liver got emptied and you're making pretty strong ketones by the end of those 12 hours. In other format, if you take that gal who was having the supper at 7 o'clock, and then she's like, okay, I got done eating at 8 o'clock, so I'm going to try to fast until at least 8 in the morning. In those patients, I still have them try to check the sugar as close to getting up as you can. As soon as you wake up, you stimulate that your body needs sugar, so the glucoses will go down and then they'll go back up. And then your ketones are going to be pretty good in the morning, but they're fuel, so you're going to use them. So then they're going to go down, they're going to go back up. So I love it if at least for the first week, I can get a baseline of how well their liver does after they've been asleep all night. But if they're the gal who's eating supper, I'll push out the calories in their coffee. I'll say, all right, if you can't give me the 12 hours, then I need I like the 0 calories for 12 hours, even if you start it later than it should be started. I love it if you to do it just like you did it, which is you're getting up at 5:30 in the morning, and that means 5:30 at night you stop eating. But if you can't do that, then you get up in the morning, check your sugars, your ketone and blood ketones, blood glucose and blood ketones, and then I want you to keep no calories going in until at least 12 hours. And if they're in that zone and they're doing well, try to use hunger as your stimulator. Okay, wait, did I get hungry? Am I hungry? Because a lot of times when they wake up and they don't put any fat in, they don't put any calories in, it really sparks the body's production. And if you can start making ketones with your own body's fat, well, that's weight loss. And so when we look at those ketone numbers, that's a really good production that you were emptying fat cells during the night, and that your glucose was a really good. I mean, you weren't having probably any gluconeogenesis. I mean, some gluconeogenesis, but mostly you were just ketone production with good energy. And the only thing I want Jennifer, and especially those early plateau people, focused on is 0 calories for 12 hours. This isn't that hard. You can do 12 hours.
And people are asking what breaks a fast. So you are specifically saying salt and water. That is exactly the 12 hours. Let's not confuse it with, let me have this ketone drink, or let me have this with a little bit of this and under 50 calories. You are talking strictly salt and water.
Right. And it's especially because we're trying to help you lose weight, right? We want your body to push its metabolic state and increase it. Your husband had this higher advantage that he had more mitochondria in his body, more muscle cells. Mm-hmm. And as soon as he started to turn on those muscle cells, he had probably 20% more little burning furnaces in his body. And once you do, it's easier to recruit the next one. It's easier to recruit the next one. You're a woman, you have different hormones and less mitochondria, and you've had babies. So your system has already done this zone where you protect itself from, that's what happens when we make babies, that the hormones do some things that make us more insulin resistant. That's why diabetes shows up a lot of times in pregnancy. And those hormones are there for protective reasons as you make another human. We're happy about that. But now you have a set zone that can sometimes be hard to racket it back down, and you do not have the advantage of the extra mitochondria that your husband had in all those muscle cells.
Yeah, I think my numbers have been pretty good. Now, I will tell you, I totally expected you to tell me after a longer fast. So today I stopped eating at 1 o'clock.
So here's the deal. It's a muscle that you're flexing, and I really find that. I mean, I take care of chronic illness. So when I'm trying to help somebody with a behavior, and I don't care if they're trying to get off of sex, drugs, rock and roll, cocaine, we got all kinds of problems that show up at that front door. Yeah. But behavior happens in steps. And it is conquering a step before you go to the next one. And then having the support around you, see what that does to the rest of the world. Like, I know you've got a teenager in your home. And although you have a husband who's really supportive of this and he's fasting too, having too many changes into a family with a teenager, it can be the sabotage. Is to say, did we make these changes in a way where she was able to conquer it? You've got a 2 pounds of weight loss and you still had a hiccup in there. That process is nice, steady. We want that. And you can say, I want it faster. I'm like, I don't. The problem with faster is it does, it usually comes with behaviors that, we talk about this a lot with my addiction patients. When a behavior change shows up suddenly, it reverses suddenly too. So when they come in on January 1st and they say, I'm going from 3 packs of cigarettes a day to 0, and I'm like, for like a week. And then you're going to fail. You can't do that. I mean, the contemplation of saying, what is it going to do to your family when you go from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to not eating the next morning? And if you say, you know what, my daughter was out of town or she was out of friends, it's not going to change anything that we would do normally. Today worked out well. I wouldn't put that expectation into your life saying you should do that. I would say, look at the success you've had. The things that I like to paint a mental picture of, and I say this more for the audience because really your numbers are good. I expect you'll lose weight in the next week if you just stick with the 12 hours and you're as strict as you are, which means you get up in the morning at that 5:30, whatever time, and you are really no calories, nothing but water since that moment the day before. I would keep practicing.
Please subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. Stay tuned.